Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of Tools for Transitioning Humanitarians. I'm your host, Estella Mono. So, today I want to talk about the topic that I think is something that we are so aware of, at the same time, we're not really aware of it. And the topic is a dominant factor. Now, let me explain what I mean by it. As humans, as we have evolved in our development from being child to adolescent to adult, and then going through life, we have always had some version of a dominant factor in our lives. That was the focus of our life, right? As we were children, so the focus would be going to kindergarten, the school, and then as we went to adolescent, maybe our focus was dating and growing up and learning to be human, learning to be adult. And then as we went to university, our dominant factor was to study, to get to a job, or to pursue a passion. So there was always a dominant factor that defined which direction we were going in life. And then what's interesting that I find is that as I have been observing, coaching my client and coaching myself as well, is that when we get to a humanitarian work, especially when we have achieved certain heights, certain levels, certain successes, certain achievements. We feel like we have done all of our goals and dreams. We have done all the things that we have always strived for, right? We have achieved basically the things that we always wanted, and then that there is then this place or point where as if we have climbed up the mountain, the highest mountain that we wanted, our Everest. We have climbed up the Everest. And then we're like, now, okay, what's now? Right? So, what is the next dominant factor that we keep being driven by to keep going for? And then a lot of the times we fill that gap, that dominant factor, either with our work. That's one of the ways that we just fill it with our work, or the lack of the life that we really want to be living. And then we make our worries, doubts, fears around how we're not living the life we want to as our dominant factor. So have you noticed is that that's why I'm saying that we're somehow aware of it at the same time we're not aware that this is the dominant factor that is really deciding whether we go for the things that we want to or the life that we're really living, right? So dominant factor then becomes either the work that we either are not having or not really liking the one that we have, or either that is the dominant factor. So that decides whether we can live the life we want to here, whether we can live the life in this location or in that location, or with our loved ones or not. That becomes the dominant factor, or our struggle wanting to live the life becomes the dominant factor. So we keep saying things like, I don't have this choice, I don't have this thing, I don't have the money to make this work, I don't really live the life I want to. I wish I could live in the chalet in France or I don't know, in Kenya or in Thailand or whichever the destination that you've always wanted to live, or back home, but I can't really do that. I can't really afford. So money becomes the dominant factor, or having no choice becomes the dominant factor of our lives. And what that does then is that it just keeps us being frozen in that time period, right? Because we have always moved in our, like, we have always had the dominant factor that kept us going to the next thing and the next thing. And once we have achieved all of those things, then we feel like, okay, what's the next dominant factor? And then we just keep feeling like either it's the work that we don't really want to do, or that's not getting us to where we want to, or not having any option, or believing that we don't have the money, the option, and what we want. And then we just make that a dominant factor. And then we keep frozen in that time period while we keep discussing with ourselves, with others, while we keep searching for or researching, trying to get help, trying to do this, trying to do that. and then several years pass, and then we feel like we haven't really moved anywhere. We haven't really changed our current situation in any way to the direction we want to. At the same time, we're not really satisfied with what we have, and then that becomes our dominant factor. What I call it a no choice dominant factor, right? So we keep feeling like we're stuck. We don't really have choices. We don't really have this. We don't really have that. And then we make that a dominant factor that keeps defining what we can and cannot do in life, how we can live and how we can contribute. Everything is being decided by that dominant factor. In other words, we become the victim or hostage of that thought process or of that stuck feeling, of that frozen emotional state that just doesn't get us anywhere. Right? So that's really what I wanted to talk about today. Because it seems like that we as humans always need a dominant factor. Like whichever it is, we need a dominant factor. We be it the dominant factor being our family, our children, our life where we're having all the balance of work and relationship and money and health, all of this together. Whatever it is, we need that dominant factor. And if we don't have it, or if we're not satisfied with it, what we're going to often naturally do is then we're going to fill it with all the unsatisfactory, unfulfilled dreams or unfulfilled, dissatisfied ways of being. We just fill it with that. Now, what I'm suggesting in this episode is for you to really get to know your dominant factor first, right? So, because it's something that we are somehow aware, at the same time, we're not aware that we're being guided or governed by those dominant factors, whatever they are, because we're not really, I think, aware of how we're being governed by them. Essentially, these are belief systems and feelings, how we're governed by them. And the more we're aware of them, then we start owning and deciding what to do about them, right? But if we're not really aware of them, then we're not going to do anything about it. We just keep feeling stuck or frozen in the time period that we don't really want to be in. And then we just keep feeling like we don't know what to do and how to get out of it, right? So therefore, I would suggest the first thing that we really need to understand is what is the dominant factor that's governing us in that period of our lives, right? And everyone's period of their lives might be different in governing dominating factors. So, for instance, for some people, the dominant factor could be the work. That work keeps deciding and governing whether we can live in this place, whether we can do this job or not do this job, whether we can dedicate time to our self-care, whether we can dedicate time to going on a date. So there must be a dominant factor. It might be work for many of us humanitarians, right? Now, for some of us, though, it might not be work, but it might be the eternal struggle, or not eternal, but I'm exaggerating, obviously, but a long time of struggle, or keep thinking, keep overthinking about how we don't have the choice, how we don't have the plans, how we don't have the options, how we don't have the money, how we don't have this. That might have become the dominant factors that keep governing over us, right? In other words, that keeps creating the weather for us, so that whether we like that day in our lives or not really depends on those clouds that keep governing over us, that we need to be more aware of what that is. And I think most of humanitarians who come to me, they have that no choice or no option, no plan, no alternative type of dominant factors that keep governing over them. Now, the interesting part is that we need to really recognize is that as long as we keep that dominant factor of no choice, no plans, no alternatives, I'm just stuck. If we keep being governed by that thought processes the whole time, we're not going to move anywhere, right? So we need to really understand and recognize and be aware and own it. That as long as we keep telling ourselves we have no choice, we have no alternative, I'm just stuck, I can't go here, I can't go here. If we keep doing that, we're not going to move anywhere. It's very logical, right? But I think oftentimes we don't really not only recognize, but we don't recognize that's actually the reason why we're not moving anywhere. I think oftentimes we believe the reason why we're not moving is because of the economy, because of competition, because of other things, and then we just keep using, or maybe because of the spouse or the partner who's not supporting me, and we just keep using them as a reason for how we cannot live the life we want to. But the problem also is that if we keep using them as a reason for not living the life we want to, we're not going to live the life we want to. That's just as simple as it is, right? If we're going to keep using money as a reason, economy as a reason, competition as a reason, all the other people's judgments as a reason for not living the life we want to, not making the impact we want to, not working on the things we want to, not building the things we want to, then we're not going to live the life we want to. That's it, right? So therefore, if we cannot use those as reasons, if our partners cannot be the reason, if money can't be the reason, if economy or competition, other people's judgment can't be reason, then how are we going to take ownership of what are we going to do? How are we going to make these things happen the way we want to and transition to what we want to, right? And that's where we need to work on. But in order to work on though, that we need to really recognize that if this is the dominant factor that keeps governing over me, right? I keep feeling like the victim of this stuckness. I keep feeling the victim of fear. I keep feeling the victim of other people's judgments. I keep feeling the victim of not having money or not having the ability to make the money I want to. If I keep putting myself a victim of these things, then I'm not going to move and go anywhere. I'm not going to live the life I want to. And I think that's once we recognize that, once we are like, oh, I see that the reason why I'm not really going to what I want to is because I'm believing that I'm just stuck and I can't do anything about it. I'm believing that I don't have money to make things work. I'm believing that I can't really make the money outside of this setting work. I'm believing that economy is bad. I'm believing that my husband or my wife, my partner, my girlfriend, boyfriend, they don't support me, so therefore I can't really do this on my own. If I keep believing those things, obviously I'm not going to do anything about it. Or if I keep telling myself that this is not going to work, what I really want to do is not going to work, there is no guarantee. How do I know it will work? If I keep staying in this, then I'm obviously not going to make anything work because I'm not going to take any action towards what I want because I'm telling myself in advance that this is not going to work. And once we start recognizing that dominant factor, and the reason why I keep saying that this is the dominant factor is because they are the one deciding whether we can go and do the things or not. They're the one deciding whether we can really live the life we want to. They're the one deciding whether we can make the money that we want to. And once we recognize and own it, then we can decide what to do with them. Now, here is my suggestion for everyone thinking about understanding their dominant factors is as humans, which is, I believe is true universally, as humans, what we really want is our dominant factors to be the passion, the mission, the cause, the values that are important to us. We really want to be dominated by them. We really want to be dominated by the passion of doing the things that we love, the impact that we want to create, the cause that we want to work for, the values that are important to us that we want to spread, the integrity and honesty of working on the things that we really want. We want to be, in other words, dominated by that freedom, by that inner value systems of what is really important to us and work on them and feel free to be doing the things we want to and making the money we want to, living the life we want to we want to be guided by those dominant factors. In other words, dominant factors that we want to be guided by, to summarize, is the freedom, passion, cause, the mission, purpose of what we really want to do, and then being fulfilled and satisfied doing that, and having the money covering for all the things we want to. That's how we want to be dominated by. And as soon as we're now dominated by those factors, instead, if we're dominated by either work that we don't really like or we don't really see the point of, or if we are dominated by no choice or no alternative or stuck feeling, then we're not going to go anywhere. So that's why I would love to invite you to take the time this week as you watch me and listen to me, whichever the way, and then you have understood what is your dominating factor is currently that's dominating your life. And if you feel like it's not dominated by that purpose, the mission, the passion, the belief of this is really what you want to do. If you're not dominated by that, instead you're constantly trying to struggle with finding an alternative or finding an option or deciding or getting away or avoiding. If you are being dominated by then we need to learn how to get out of that. And one of the ways that we can do is, as I said, being aware of how they're governing you. And then once you own that this is what I'm governed by, and I don't want to be governed by these thought processes because I want to be governed by how powerful I am, how capable I am to do whatever I want to, then we can shift to pursuing the passion, pursuing the cause, pursuing the mission, because we know already from many of our past experiences that the more we are passionate and driven by that cause, by what we really believe, the more successful we get. We know that. We have proven that. We have done that in the past. So therefore, in order for us to be able to do that, we need to stop struggling with like no options or no alternative and feeling stuck thought processes, or keep allowing that work to be the dominant factor, deciding for us what to do and what not to do, but rather going into that feeling of powerfulness, the capability to be doing what we really want to do. So, my dears, if you would like to work on this, I really would love to help you get to know and understand your dominant factors and getting out of that thought processes, or getting out of that feeling frozen in that time period without really being able to get to what you want to, because you haven't really recognized what the dominant factors are and how they're governing you. And then once we start understanding and learning and then deciding what to do, we gain the power to be going and being dominated by freedom, by our inner freedom, by our passion, by our cause, by our love for what we want to do and how we contribute to be dominating our lives and going forward. So come coach with me, message me or email me at sl@complaintfree.life, and I will talk to you very soon.